Hi guys, we're gonna correct lesson 1 review, page 314. Starting with number 1, describe the parts of an ecosystem. Now, an ecosystem, do not forget, is made up of all the living things and the non-living thing in the same place, okay? Which we call them biotic factors and abiotic factors. Biotic factors like predators, like prey, plants, bacteria, fungi, and the abiotic factors, if you remember, they're the water, the sunlight, the temperature, the air, and the soil. So this is what makes an ecosystem. Define number 2, define succession using your own words. Now, I know that I cannot see your sentences, but it should be something like, if you want, it should mention that it's a gradual change of one community to another community in a specific area. Okay, we've talked about this is another example of succession. I've put another storyboard for you if you want to look at it. There, for example, wild animals, huge and tall trees, plants, insects living peacefully together. And then suddenly, something happens, right? A wild mountain fire has broken out, burning everything down. So this is the interruption. And even though everything has burned to nothing, the ecosystem is slowly grown back. Now, do not forget it's the gradual change. Now, the ecosystem started to grow grass, trees, and flowers. So it's kind of refixing itself. The small animals start to come back. Trees grew bigger and thicker, and then you have the whole community or the whole ecosystem. A full ecosystem has been recovered, coming to a healthy, beautiful, and thriving. So having the biotic factors and the abiotic factor. So this is succession. This is the gradual change that you should think of, okay? From a community to another community in the same area. Number 3, distinguish between biome and biosphere. Okay, what's a biome? What's a biosphere? Okay, distinguish. What's the difference? Now, a biome is kind of a collection of different ecosystems, okay, that share similar climate conditions. So it's a huge region, okay, a huge geographic region, having a collection of different ecosystems. Now, the biosphere, when you say biosphere, it's all the all the ecosystems on Earth. Okay, it includes all the places on Earth where life is found, and it includes all of the different biomes. So this is kind of the connection between those two. So the biosphere includes all of the different biomes. Number 4, explain the difference between biotic and abiotic factors. We've talked about them so many times, but just kind of, I know that you know them by now, but they're the living things, the biotic factors, the living things or the once living things. And the abiotic factors are the non-living things like the air and the temperature and the light and the water. Choose which describes a biotic factor. Is it A, community, B, sunlight, C, temperature, D, water? Now it's A, community. Okay, so again, which describes a biotic factor? Is it sunlight? Sunlight is a abiotic factor, right? It's a non-living thing. Temperature, non-living thing. Water, again, it's a non-living thing. So we've left with a community, okay? So this is a community, for example. 6, determine whether people in your area have changed the local environment. I know it's kind of tricky for you, but think about it. It must have happened. You know, the people around you are changing the local environment. Well, we are changing the local environment, whether we like it or not. So I will give an example. Now, it should kind of indicate that humans have changed the environment. How? Like setting aside land, okay, for farm fields. For a specific reason, we've changed it. Housing development, okay, shopping areas, industrial areas. This is how people change the environment, local environment around them. Number 7, compare 2 different biomes. Now, I chose 2, the major 2. Okay, copy the table below and write the name of each biome in the top row. Write the characteristics of each biome in the spaces below its name. So I've chose terrestrial and aquatic. I know that it's a huge choice. You can choose between those two, okay, and or the aquatic, the freshwater and the seawater, whatever you like, okay, any two different biomes, any two you like, okay. I chose, just to show you the example, terrestrial and aquatic, okay, land and water. So you can also choose the differences, similarities between freshwater and seawater, for example, salt water. So just find, or if you want, just find two terrestrial biomes, okay, and give the differences in between. Now, terrestrial is land-based, aquatic is water-based. Terrestrial has forest, grassland, deserts, tundras, while aquatic has freshwater, marine, okay, and so on, coral reefs. Terrestrial smaller than aquatic. Aquatic is larger than terrestrial. You think of the ocean, think of the continent. Terrestrial contains the insects. For example, I just gave examples. Terrestrial contains insects, tigers, trees, okay? Now, while aquatic contains marine animals like fish, like algae, like eels. Okay, so any two biomes you like. 8. Describe how the abiotic factors differ between these two communities. Okay, they've shown you the desert, okay, versus the forest. So if you look, you should describe how temperature, water availability, soils, and amount of sunlight are different. Okay, if you want, the major differences between a desert and a forest. So for example, the desert has very high temperatures during the day and low temperatures at night. The climate is hot and dry. The varieties of animals, for example, you have lizards and snakes, okay, owls, rats. Now the plants are like cactuses, okay. So this is kind of the difference between deserts, okay, what it has, and the forest. For example, the tropical forest, they're dense, they're humid, right? They're rich in water. They have different types of animals than deserts have. Okay, so this is the differences, if you want. And this was the last exercise. Hope you understood this homework pretty well. I hope I helped you more. Thank you so much, guys.
Biotic factors are all living things in the environment or ecosystem. An ecosystem is a community of living and non-living things. Here are some examples of biotic or living components in an ecosystem. Flowers, insects, grasses, trees, reptiles, mammals, fungi, fish, paramecium. All living, all biotic. Abiotic factors are all non-living chemical and physical factors in the environment or ecosystem. An ecosystem is a community of living and non-living things. Here are some examples of some abiotic or non-living factors. Rain, mountains, rivers, temperature, clouds, air, soil, rocks, and lightning.
The population of people on Earth is increasing every day. Scientists have measured the growth to be 3 new people every second. But people are not the only population that you can count. Another example of a population is all of the owls in a forest. A population is a group of the same organisms living in an area. Sometimes different populations live in the same area. For example, there could be a population of mice and a population of pine trees. Many populations in the same area are called a community. Within the community, populations interact. In the forest, a population of owls interact with the population of mice. Owls hunt and kill mice as they obtain food they need to survive. In a forest, non-living things interact with the community. Mountains shape the land, rivers provide water to the animals, soil gives a place for the trees to grow, and the sunlight provides energy to the plants. An ecosystem is a term that scientists give to all of the living and non-living things in the area. A forest is just one example of an ecosystem. Another ecosystem is the desert. A group of scorpions is a desert population. All of the scorpions, birds, reptiles, and other living things are the desert community. Add in abiotic factors to complete the desert ecosystem. Populations are all members of one species. Communities are many populations. Ecosystems include communities and the non-living parts. Population, community, and ecosystem.
The Earth is actually divided into natural areas called biomes. See, a biome is a large region of Earth that has a certain climate and certain types of living things like animals and plants. Major biomes include tundra, forests, grasslands, and deserts. Each has its own unique ecosystem, which includes its climate, the geography, and the plants and animals that live there. And although Earth has many different types of unique biomes, they really fall into 2 main categories: terrestrial biomes, or land, and aquatic biomes, which are both freshwater and marine. The plants and animals of each one of these biomes have traits that help them to survive in that particular biome, and they also depend on each other for their survival. Now, there are some smaller areas called ecosystems, and each biome has many different ecosystems.
The world is constantly changing. New islands are being created, fires burn in forests, volcanoes explode and destroy areas. Nothing remains the same, and habitats are constantly changing. Ecological succession is a process by which an ecological community undergoes changes following a disturbance or the initial colonization of a new habitat. For example, the islands of Hawaii were formed from volcanic activity. From their fiery start, over time they became tropical islands. There are 2 main types of succession: primary and secondary. Primary succession occurs in new areas that have little or no soil. In other words, the area has been almost completely destroyed or is newly formed. For example, new islands can be created from lava flows. The lava creates a new land without soil. A volcano may destroy a very large area. This would be an example of primary succession. Over time, dirt is formed, plants begin to grow, and a forest or a grassland may return. The first species that colonized this new land is called the pioneer species. Lichen and moss are many times pioneer species. Secondary succession occurs when an existing ecosystem has been destroyed or disturbed. They are more minor in magnitude compared to a primary succession. For example, a forest fire may destroy a large area of trees and plants, or flooding can destroy an area. In this before and after picture, the fire destroys plants, but the soil remains. 2 years later, the forest has grown back. Here is how secondary succession may occur. Fire destroys plant growth. The fire leaves behind empty but not destroyed soil. Grasses and other plants grow back first. Small bushes and trees begin to colonize the area. Next, fast-growing evergreen trees develop to their fullest, while shade-tolerant trees develop underneath. Eventually, larger deciduous trees will grow over them, and the ecosystem is similar but different from where it began. These disturbances can actually be healthy for an area over time because they can lead to increased biodiversity. Controlled burns are practiced by many park services. The fires help manage weeds and other growth and helps to reduce the risk of wildfires, but it can also help destroy nutrients and lead to more desirable plant growth in the future.